Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as what if Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
But no, it just has to be a Bunsen. A Rook. Naruto thought in frustration. He could easily pass the written exams and the accuracy test, but producing Bunsen was practically impossible for him. Naruto had too much chakra to form a normal Bunsen. A wooden clone, yes, but a Bunsen, no. And so, just as I had predicted, Naruto excelled in the written exam and the Kyuna and Shuriken accuracy test, but failed the ninjutsu test with flying colors. The blonde adopted the step of a depressed student of the academy, which, to be honest, was not so difficult. He sat dejectedly on the swing, when in fact he was healing the tree he was sitting next to. He was sick, and Naruto was getting rid of the disease. That's why Naruto hadn't noticed Mizuki until the academy instructor started talking to him. The Hinchiriki was only half paying attention, or he would have realized that his sensei was obviously up to something. But the blonde guy didn't, and he didn't notice. Getting the forbidden scroll was ridiculously easy. When all this was over, Naruto would have to talk to the Hokage to tighten security. In his lessons with trees, he learned to merge with wood, being able to transport himself practically to any place where the wood touched. So that's what the user of the Makuden did. Naruto merged with the wood of the Hokage Tower, sneaked into the library, and went out into the forest, to the training area that Mizuki had mentioned to him. Once there, Naruto opened the scroll of the technique called Kagebunsen and began to learn it. About 3 hours later, Iruka entered the clearing. Naruto? I found you. Hi Iruka-sensei. Naruto replied calmly. Why did you take the scroll? You know you could get in a lot of trouble if someone finds you with him. Mizuki-sensei said that there was a jutsu here that he could use to pass the exams. He said that if I mastered it, he would approve of me. Mizuki? Iruka thought. Oh shit. The distinctive sound of a huge shuriken was heard as one of the aforementioned approached Naruto whistling. Naruto? Get down. Iruka shouted. The blonde followed his instructions and looked towards the place where the shuriken came from. The silver-haired academy instructor jumped into the clearing in front of the other two shinobi. No matter what happens, don't let Mizuki get the scroll, ordered Iruka. Naruto just nodded in response, watching Mizuki cautiously. I was planning to kill the demon and keep the scroll, but since you're going to get in the way, I'll kill you too. Mizuki said with a crazy face. Browse newcomer, community betas forum history search anime bara manga bara anime bara. Naruto bara anime bara, Naruto bara. More. With that, he threw several shurikens at the scarred Chunin. Iruka dodged and deflected some, but in the end, he got stuck to the wall of the building, behind the three shinobi. Meanwhile, Naruto was having a hard time controlling the wood around him. Finally, the blonde let go to do as the Hinchiriki dictated. Naruto waved a hand in Mizuki's direction, and dozens of roots sprouted out of the ground to engulf his former sensei. The two instructors of the academy stared at Naruto in amazement. The Makuden was the jutsu of the Shodaime, and only his. It seemed almost impossible that Naruto could use it. He is the most unpredictable ninja in Konoha. Iruka reflected. The scarred Chunin came out of his thoughts after a statement from Mizuki. Have you ever wondered why the villagers hate you so much? Why do they always glare at you and ignore you? Iruka started to come in. In a panic. Mizuki, stop. Ha ha ha. I'll tell you. The Yondaime didn't defeat the Kyugi, it sealed him in a newborn baby, it's true. And that baby was you. You're the fox. When Mizuki finished, she burst out laughing out loud. Iruka turned around slowly, to look at Naruto, afraid of what he would see on his face. To the Chunin's surprise, he saw only an expression of boredom and absolute displeasure. True. The last time I looked at myself in the mirror, I wasn't a 60-meter mass of raging chakra. It makes one question one's sanity, Naruto said coldly. Mizuki seemed about to say something again, but the blonde interrupted him. I don't want to hear it. You're annoying enough when you stay quiet. Naruto raised his hands, forming a cross-shaped seal. Kajeben without no jutsu. The Hinchiriki smiled smugly as he saw hundreds of his clones appear. "It's time to try my new jutsu," Naruto said. He smiled smugly and pulled back the roots that were holding Mizuki. While doing so, the silver-haired academy instructor was attacked by Naruto's Kajibans. Mizuki lay at Naruto's feet, mush-faced and unconscious. Naruto, however, was pouting. "I guess this means I don't pass." "Oh shit." Iruka smiled kindly at the blonde Makuden user. "Naruto, come here and close your eyes." The Hinchiriki obeyed and felt his glasses being taken off and something lighter put on. The blonde man had a feeling for what it was and discovered that he was right when he opened his eyes, and ran his hand through the design of the leaf carved into the metallic idolate. "Thank you, Iruka-sensei." The Scar Chunin smiled. "I think we should tell all this to the Okage, right?" Saruto and smoked his pipe, trying to analyze all the information that had been presented to him. Apparently, Naruto had Mokuto, which meant that he was related to the former, whose only living direct relative was Tsunade. The Sandaime paled as he realized the consequences of the night's events. Hirai was already going to kill him, growing up, watching the cycle, going round and round, watching the moon rise and the sun set. Getting older day by day, hour by hour, second by second, he treasures every moment as if it were his last, because it could be. Makuden Naruto barely resisted banging his head on the desk when his team was called. "Why is that? Oh, why do I have to be on the same team as the incubator and I advanced it? Why is that? Which heavenly deity did I make angry in a past life?" he complained to himself. Naruto simply covered his head with his hands and ignored the rest of the class. When all the other teams were picked up, he fell asleep right away, thinking that his sensei was one of those who enjoyed being late. The Hinchiriki was rudely awakened from his nap by a furious Bansiev. "Pink hair. Naruto, you fool. Wake up!" he shouted, in a voice that sounded like a screech. Naruto blinked, stunned, to see a comically furious Sakura staring at him, and the Avenger Uchiha grimacing at the Kunoichi's voice. "You've been asleep for 2 hours. Our sensei could arrive at any moment. We are not in the academy anymore, this is the real world." Naruto looked at him again. The Uchiha fan was lecturing him about the real world. It was ridiculous, really. Before he could reply, his sensei Hounen finally entered. Blinking with the air of an owl, the silver-haired man looked at the genin and said, "My first impression. I don't like you. Not at all. See you on the rooftop." Naruto sighed, and Sasuke seemed annoyed, while Sakura seemed completely offended. Once all the genin got on the roof, Kakashi started talking. "All right, everybody, let's introduce ourselves. Your name, tastes, hobbies, and dreams for the future. You start, Pinky." Sakura looked at the Hounen with a lost gaze. "Why don't you go first, sensei?" Kakashi shrugged his shoulders. "My name is Kakashi Attack. My likes and dislikes are none of your business. My hobbies? Dreams for the future. The truth is that I don't have any." Sakura spoke again. "My name is Sakura Aruno. My tastes are to insert look at Sasuke. I hate Inocerdo. Hobbies. Insert look at Sasuke and blush. Dreams for the future. Insert pig squeal and blush." Kakashi and Naruto got their foreheads soaked at the same time, and even Sasuke looked a little suspicious. The silver-haired Jounin quickly shrugged his shoulders and spoke again. "Well, the one who looks at me like I'm a steak is next. My name is Yukiya Sasuke. I dislike a lot of things, and I like what I don't dislike. My hobby is training. I have a dream, but I call it ambition. To resurrect my clan. And kill a certain man." Sakura looked at Sasuke as if he was the best thing in the world, but Naruto was thinking deeply. He has not yet learned the value of life. Even if it's a killer like and Itachi. Naruto knew about the Uchiha massacre. If I had learned anything by observing the cycles of life in the forest, it was that one must observe, wait and listen. Information was power. To be a real shinobi, one must wait for the right opportunity to deal a devastating blow to the enemy. The blonde guy had a habit of hearing things he shouldn't hear, and he knew quite a few things. That's how he found out about the one I saw in the first place. Two ambubrachos had been discussing it after a few drinks of serve, let their tongues loose. After the encounter, Naruto had entered his mental landscape and managed to talk to the Kyumi. The nine-tailed kitsune had become much nicer after Naruto used his Makuden to restrain the fox. They had come to a kind of respect between the two beings, and sometimes they could work together. The emphasis was on sometimes. It's okay. Blondie, you're next. The Hinchiriki obeyed. My name is Naruto. Me. Sakura interrupted. No clan name. Ha. Naruto's eyes darkened. I'm an orphan, Sakura. I was born on the day of the Kirumi attack. They never found my birth certificate, and it is assumed that my parents are dead. I'm not related, nothing. This silenced the kunoichi thankfully. Anyway, I like ramen and plants. I don't like the 3 minutes it takes for ramen to cook or people who judge others before they meet them. Hobbies, I guess it would be gardening, and walking in the woods as for dreams. I guess I want to become a strong shinobi to protect my dear people, maybe become Hokage or something like that. She almost blinked. This team could still have hope. Anyway, tomorrow is your first mission as a shinobi. It will be a test of survival. But we did a lot of survival training at the academy, Sakura complained. But this will be different. They will survive against me. You see, the first Genin exam was just to determine who had the potential to become a Genin. This test will determine whether they become true Genin or not. It is a very difficult exam with a 66% failure rate. Good luck, the Hounen said before disappearing, leaving behind 3 very confused Genin. Sakura had easily earned the title of Genin with the most annoying voice. He proceeded to reprimand his instructor. Naruto was distracted while Sensei Hounen was giving the instructions, as he already had a vague idea of the exam. Only when his silver-haired sensei shouted start, he moved. The Makuden user merged with a tree to give him time to think. Naruto knew that there was some kind of trick in the test. For a Genin to face a Tokubetsu Hounen is suicide. The only way to get a bell would be to use the distraction of another Genin, at the expense of said Genin. Damn, that's a disaster. I could use the distraction that one of them will eventually cause to get the bells for me. I do not know if I could fail someone. Anyway, with his formulated plan, Naruto synchronized with the earth around him, which allowed the Hinchiriki to perceive all forms of life. At this point, he limited his search by ignoring the low-level chakras and looked for a much higher level one. Finally, the blonde found him and discovered that Sakura was unconscious, and that Sasuke was waging a completely unequal battle against Kakashi. Naruto smiled smugly and headed towards the battle. The user of the Makuden absorbed natural chakra from the landscape, almost doubling his normal reserves. Naruto quickly masked the surge, an art he had mastered for a long time. On time. When the blonde felt Kakashi diving underground, he jumped out from between the trees and literally threw Sasuke away from the resurfaced Hounen. Kakashi arched his only visible eyebrow. That must have taken a lot of strength. Sasuke glared at Naruto. What the hell was that? Shouted the angry Avenger. Is that how you treat someone who just saved your ass, you ingrate? Naruto asked calmly. Look, are you going to help me or not? The only way to get those bells is if we work together. Sakura is out of action, so we can't expect any help from her. Che. It was Sasuke's response as he jumped up to attack Kakashi. Naruto sighed, but imitated him. Sasuke launched a quick circular kick at the Hounen's head, while Naruto charged a palm strike with natural chakra, and managed to give Kakashi an indirect blow on the arm. Naruto's Forest Fist Shinrinken alternated between normal attacks and the addition of natural chakra. This chakra was introduced into the opponent's body and deteriorated the fibers and muscle tissue, and even the bones if there was enough chakra. And, unfortunately for the Hounen, that's precisely what happened to his arm. With a taijutsu style like Shinrinken, Naruto possessed a complex understanding of human anatomy. and knew exactly which muscles and tendons he had to eliminate to prevent Kakashi from using his arm. First, he broke the tendons in Jotanin-sensei's wrist to prevent him from using his fingers. Then, Naruto forced the chakra up his arm and deteriorated the muscular structure until it was extremely weak. Kakashi stared at his student. That one. That's the Shutaheim. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Really? I never knew that. With one arm disabled, the two genie found it easier to get the bells. Sasuke used some Katen jutsus, but Naruto didn't use Makuten. I wanted to save the surprise for later. Finally, Naruto got close enough to snatch the bells from Kakashi's belt. The silver-haired sensei's eye crinkled into a smile. It was at that moment that the kunoichi of the team decided to join them. Sakura came closer and saw Naruto and Sasuke with a bell each. His shoulders shrugged when he saw that he had failed the exams. Well, I guess I failed, she said dejectedly. Naruto was right. I just couldn't stand to see anyone so depressed. Well, there's always next year, he thought. The Hinchiriki sighed again and threw the bell to Sakura. Here you go, Sakura, he said quietly. 2 tests. Kakashi-sensei, I'll fix your arm before I go home. Naruto concentrated natural chakra in his hand and modified it to heal. He approached Kakashi and healed the Hounin's arm, introducing the green chakra that represented the energy of nature. When he finished, the shine faded and the blonde began to walk away. It was a pleasure to meet you, Sakura, Sasuke. I wish them all the best. Pain. The other 3 shinobi just stared at him blankly. Naruto was sipping a cup of instant ramen when he heard a knock on his door. Who will it be? He wondered. For added security, he pulled out a crib and hid it in his jacket sleeve. The blonde guy opened the door and saw a silver-haired jounin, a pink-haired kunoichi, and a genin, with jet hair outside. Hello, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura, Sasuke. What do they need? He asked. Sasuke arched an eyebrow. Can we come in? The Hinchiriki shrugged his shoulders and stepped aside, allowing him to enter his apartment. So, what do you need? Ah, well, I actually came here to explain the true meaning of the test, Kakashi said. Teamwork. Yes, I know. Basically, you have to choose the person you want to be stuck with for who knows how long. Anyway, I can't stand it. To see people whom I consider comrades suffer. After all, the pain of the heart hurts much more than the physical one. Naruto laughed bitterly. Believe me, you should know. Kakashi looks at the blonde with sadness. You don't understand. If the team could work together, everyone would pass. Nani. Because you and Sasuke worked together, and you gave your bell to Sakura, you proved that you have the power to be a qualified genin. And that you are quite self-sacrificing. The truth is, I didn't think this team would have passed the test, and I wouldn't have done it if it weren't for you. So congratulations. El Jounin said, smiling under his mask. Naruto blinked. All right. Sakura turned to look at her shorter companion. Naruto, I want to thank you for giving me the bell. I don't know if I would have done it if I were in your place. The blonde gave a slight smile and noticed that Sasuke was staring at him, not furiously, something that didn't happen often. Is something wrong, Sasuke? He asked. Ch. Kakashi smiled. I knew his team would get along very well. Fuku-chan. The next chapter will probably be 2. It will take a little longer to get out, but I will go as fast as possible. As for the clothes, everyone except Naruto wears the same. Naruto is wearing black cargo pants with typical ninja gear, plus a dark brown backpack on his left hip. He is wearing a black t-shirt under a green voice sweatshirt. The colors of the forest, of course. Yes, of course. Naruto sighed. Catching a cat and pulling weeds was not exactly his idea of training. He was patient, but still. At least, the Hinchiriki could make up for it by training like crazy after finishing their missions. Sasuke and Sakura didn't have his patience, and it was unlikely that they would be able to complete rank missions for much longer. Naruto was right. A few minutes later, Sakura burst out. The Sandaime was listing the available quests when Sakura interrupted him. No. No way. Give us a real mission. Naruto expected Sakura to get angry, but to yell at the Hokage. Where did that come from? He wondered. Sarutobi sighed. All right. I will give you a C-rank mission. You will escort a bridge builder to the Land of Waves. Please come in, Tsunade-san. When the Hokage had finished speaking, an old man entered the room. The Hinchiriki wrinkled his nose in disgust. He probably could have smelled the serve emanating from the man miles away. Tsunade looked around. I only have a few brats to protect me. Is it really safe? Sasuke arched an eyebrow, Sakura looked disappointed, and Naruto didn't show any visible reaction. The blonde quickly appeared behind the bridge builder and said, Kakashi-sensei, can I go pack? I suppose you'll want me to meet you at the west door before you leave the office. Tsunade jumped up and said, now that I like the blonde one, why couldn't the other two be more like him? Completely forgetting that I had just also spoken badly about Naruto. Sakura, Sasuke, why don't you get ready too? I need to talk to Kakashi about his mission. Iruka, I need you to leave too, suggested Bara ordered Sarutobi. Sasuke shrugged his shoulders, and Sakura nodded before they left too, Tsunade with them. Iruka looked at the Hokage before leaving as well. The Sandai sighed at me and took a puff on his pipe. Kakashi, I lied about the mission rank. The silver-haired Jounin raised his visible eyebrow, inviting the Hokage to continue. This isn't a rank mission. Tsunade is wanted dead by the powerful figure of the expedition, Gitu. These are the files we have on the shinobi who is chasing him. The Hounin nodded and took the files titled Momoki Zabuza and the Demon Brothers. Any particular reason why you're sending a Genin team fresh out of the academy on an A-rank mission? They are far from normal, as you know. Sasuke needs to wake up his Sharingan and Naruto. Well, it's one of those things you have to see to believe. You'll see him at the mission. Kakashi wondered what his superior was talking about. The Hounin shrugged his shoulders and went to meet his team. Passing by a puddle of water on the trail, Naruto looked for other signs of moisture. There were no clouds, and it hadn't rained in the area for days. The ground was dry, as was the grass. In other words, an ambush. The blonde looked at his sense and arched an eyebrow in question. Kakashi gave him a lazy smile that indicated to the Hinchiriki that he would end up doing all the work. Naruto rolled his eyes and kept walking. Just as he turned around, the infamous Demon Brothers appeared from the puddle. The pair surrounded Kakashi with their chain gun and pulled him. His sensei was shattered, with blood everywhere. Sasuke and Sakura were completely unconscious, and Naruto shuddered before focusing on the enemy again. One down, the brothers shouted in unison. The Demon Brothers jumped in behind Naruto, only to discover that his chain was only through the air. The Hinchiriki had jumped over the two shinobi and landed behind the first of the mist ninjas. The blonde man dealt him a quick blow on the neck, and the man fell down never to get up again. The second shinobi, very angry about the death of his brother, pounced on Naruto in a rage. The blonde stepped back, and the claw that the shinobi was using as a weapon continued on its way to completely crush the mist ninja's neck. Blood splattered everywhere. Sasuke and Sakura were staring at their companion, who had killed two Chunin-ranked shinobi without batting an eyelid. Naruto shook his head and looked down at his clothes. Now I have to wash this. The blood is disgusting. Sasuke's mouth twitched at the attempt to break the ice. After perceiving that his companions had relaxed, the blonde looked towards a certain tree and shouted, "Hey, sensei, you're going out now." His perverted sensei jumped out of the trees to shyly look at his pupils. Naruto arched an eyebrow at his expression. Anyway, would you mind telling us who lied about the mission rank? Shinobi's involvement makes this one at least rank B. He was the old man, he had the bridge builder. It took Kakashi a minute to figure out who the old man was. The Jounin sensei only found out because he had read somewhere that Naruto completely despised any show of respect. It was the Hokage and I who lied. So why did you send a trio of genin on a B-rank mission? And, if I'm not mistaken, also to an A rank? I think your actions answered that question. If you can get rid of a couple of Chunin that easily, it would be interesting to see what you could do against someone more powerful. That's no excuse. What about Sasuke and Sakura? Naruto pondered his own question before finding the answer. Oh, Konoha needs Sasuke to wake up his Sharingan, and an rank mission will probably lead to deaths. So you want Sakura to get acquainted with the real world. I guess I get it now. Kakashi's eyes crinkled into a lazy smile. Yes. It was later the next day when Naruto sensed a new group of attackers. He ran to catch up with Kakashi so that he could inform him of his findings. Go, Kakashi-sensei. What's up, Naruto? Two people are following us. One is of your level, and the other has a Chun chakra on average. What worries me is that the one with the lowest chakra has a Uten Kekai Henkai. They're probably coming to Port Azuna-san. Kakashi narrowed his eyes at the new information. After training with Naruto for 5 months, he had to admit that his ability to detect and hide chakra was far superior to his own. Knowing which element the chakra had affinity with was unheard of, but it was still useful. What is the affinity of the most powerful? Suten. Damn, Team 7 was near a lake, so it was a bad matchup for a water technique user and the Hounen of the group. Naruto could easily nullify all water jutsus, but he decided to wait until Kakashi needed help. Naruto opened his eyes wide and shouted at everyone. Get down! Naruto and Kakashi immediately fell to the ground. Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna were only seconds away from being decapitated by a huge spinning sword that flew over them and stuck into a tree. When the Leaf Ninjas looked up, they saw the ninja. Renegade Momoka Zabuza standing on his sword. Stand back, this guy is out of reach, the ninja copier ordered. The genie obeyed and retreated. Momoka Zabuza, the fog demon, Kakashi attack. The ninja copying from Kono to Naruto shuddered. Will they just exchange their names, or will they really fight? He wondered. This is going to be a little difficult, said the silver-haired Hounen as he pulled up the twisted headband, revealing his Sharingan. Unless I use this. Kakashi from the Sharingan. I guess you finally decided to use it, sensei. Naruto said. Sakura had no idea what was going on, and Sasuke was still in shock to find out that someone outside the Uchiha had a Sharingan. Naruto rolled his eyes at her naivety. It is not obvious that you can transplant from jutsus. Really, isn't it obvious? Anyway. Zabuza took the first step. Kirigakure's special ninjojutsu, the swordsman shouted as he disappeared into the gathering fog. The Makuden user sighed. If his sensei was good, this fog shouldn't be a problem, and he knew Kakashi was quite famous. So, in other words, they wouldn't be in trouble unless Zabuza managed to outwit her sensei's guard. Naruto decided to leave the fog where he was and watch the battle unfold. I shouldn't interfere. It might be the last thing I do. A disembodied voice reached the ears of the genin, who formed a protective circle around the bridge builder. 8 points: lungs, heart, clavicular vein, jugular, kidneys, spine, brain, neck vein. So many options, the voice said. Voice as Zabuza unleashed a great deal of killer instinct. Sakura and Sasuke were sweating profusely from the killing intent, and Naruto was having a little trouble holding her back. They remove incredibly dangerous. I feel like if I make a move, they'll kill me. This could drive anyone crazy. The intensity of a jounin. I almost feel like my life is being squeezed. I can't stand it. I'd almost rather die now and get this over with already. Sasuke thought, shuddering. The Hinchiriki of the group noticed Sasuke's train of thought and recognized the waves of fear emanating from him like a waterfall. I have to remember. These two don't have that much experience with this kind of thing, he thought. We could block their ki. At that moment, Naruto released a killing intent mixed with chakra to block the fog ninja's intent. Guys, calm down. We're not going to be the ones fighting, the blonde said. Sasuke took a deep breath and managed to calm down. Well, replied the jet-haired genin. Don't worry, Sujounin sensei said. I don't let my comrades die. We'll see about that. Zabuza appeared inside Genin's circle. "It's over," the Mist Ninja said cruelly, as he began to wield his sword, which would split the three Genin and Tazuna in half. Kakashi opened his eyes wide as he rushed to stop the deadly sword attack. There were some moments when there was a surge of movement that Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna couldn't follow. When the fighters stopped moving, Zabuza's decapitator was stopped by two kunai that Naruto was holding. The demon himself seemed surprised and amused at the same time. Wow, looks like one of the brats might be fun to play with." "Your opponent is me," shouted the ninja Copia, while sticking a cradle and into the demon's stomach, taking him away from the genie team. Instead of blood dripping from the wound, it was water. A few seconds later, Zabuza turned out to be a Mufu and Bunzen. Well, that's a Bunzen too. The real Kakashi-sensei is behind Zabuza, who is also a water clone. Naruto thought, analyzing the situation. In fact, the blonde was right. When the Mist Demon brandished his sword through his Jotanin sensei, the blade shinobi dispersed into water droplets a second later. While this was happening, the real Kakashi appeared behind Zabuza and said, "Stop. Don't move. It's over." Sasuke looked at him in amazement and Sakura laughed. Kakashi-sensei is really amazing, he thought. Then, the devil himself began to chuckle. "It's over. You don't understand. You will never beat me with these monkey imitations." But that was awesome of you. At that time, you had already copied the water clone technique. You made your clone say those words to get my attention, while you were hiding in the fog and watching me. Good plan. But I'm not that easy either," Zabuza said when the real one finally appeared behind Kakashi. Seeing his sensei's expression, Naruto almost groaned. I thought he knew it was fake too. After that, the Hounen had a taijutsu battle. Read the manga if you want the full version. The result was that Kakashi landed in the water. Naruto opened his eyes wide in surprise. Kakashi-sensei was knocked down, Sakura thought, trying to comprehend what she had just seen. He is also strong in taijutsu, Sasuke observed. What? Kakashi thought, confused. This water is heavy. Ha! You fool! Zabuza exclaimed as she quickly ran through a series of stamps. Water prison jutsu. The water surrounding the Jounin of Konoha swirled into an orb that acted as a prison for the silver-haired shinobi. Damn it! It was the only word that crossed the mind of the aforementioned Jounin. Zabuza chuckled again. Now I have you in my special inescapable prison. It gets more complicated if you can't move, you know. Now, Kakashi, we can finish this later. I'll take care of them first, the demon said as he created a water clone. The clone emerged from the water and stepped on land. He, wearing idiate and acting like real ninjas. But they know that a real ninja is someone who has survived numerous encounters with death. In short, once they get good enough to be listed in my manual, they can start calling themselves ninjas. The ninjas shouldn't be calling. Naruto felt Zabuza's kick and was able to dodge it easily. Kakashi took advantage of this to try to get his companions to flee. Guys, run with Tazuna. The water clone can't get far away from the original. This battle ended the moment I was caught. Kakashi-sensei, we can't. If we leave, Zabuza will finish you and then come for us. If we choose that option, our only future will be death. The only way to complete the mission is to get you out of there so we can leave, Naruto said. Sasuke nodded. Ha! They will never grow up. Are they going to keep playing at being ninjas? When I was about his age, these hands were already stained red with blood, Zabuza said with a crazy glint in her eyes. Devil. Zabuza. Naruto said. Ah? So you've heard something about it. Naruto told the story to his partner Genie. A long time ago, in the village of the Hidden Mist, there was one last obstacle to becoming a ninja. You even know about the graduation exam. You're too wise to be a genin. What is that about the graduation exam? Sakura asked. Zabuza chuckled. Fights to the death between students. Friends who have trained together and have eaten at the same table clashed with each other until one lost his life. Terrible, Sakura murmured. Naruto took a deep breath before finishing the story. 10 years ago, the graduation exam was forced to change. This change occurred after the previous year when a demon appeared. Sakura was confused. Over. What change? What did this demon do? Without a second's hesitation, a guy who hadn't even qualified as a ninja. He massacred more than 100 students. I'm sure it was fun. Zabuza said, looking completely beside herself. Weird with a bandaged head. Naruto muttered under his breath. Suddenly, Zabuza pounced on Sasuke, shaking him like a rag doll. The demon stomped on him, causing the black-haired shinobi to cough up blood. Sasuke-kun. Sakura shouted, worried about the Uchiha. Kakashi was very worried about his students. They wouldn't stand a chance if they didn't do something soon. He dies, Zabuza said. Damn it. Naruto thought as he went through a series of stamps. Makuton Genesis of the forest. Large amounts of wood began to sprout from the ground, intertwining and forming a dense thicket of trees. One of the growing plants pierced through Zabuza's water clone, shattering it. All the shinobi present were surprised by the wooden-style jutsu. Kakashi felt his eyes pop out of his eyes. How could one of his students have a bloodline skill that he didn't know about? It defies all logic. Sakura was in the same state of shock as her sensei, and Sasuke felt his respect for the blonde increased a couple of levels. Naruto ran towards Sasuke, his hand glowing teal with healing chakra. The blonde placed it on Lucia's chest, healing the broken ribs. Ready. That will do for you until I can heal him well, Naruto said. We have to find a way to get Kakashi-sensei out of that prison. I bet if we can get Zabuza to release him, the jutsu will disappear. All right, here's the plan. Sasuke jumped over the trees to get a good view of the battlefield. Zabuza was still in the lake, holding the water prison, and still hadn't made any moves. The jet-haired Uchiha opened a Fuma Shuriken and exclaimed, Fuma Shuriken, windmill of the shadows, before throwing it at the fog demon. Zabuza smiled smugly as he caught the shuriken. But then he saw the second shuriken, hidden in the shadow of the first one. The mist jounin opened his eyes wide, but managed to dodge it at the last instant by jumping. Sasuke, who was standing on the shore, smiled smugly. Ha! The second shuriken emerged from the edge to reveal Naruto, who landed in the water with the same ease as the jounin. The blonde man flashed an arrogant smile and threw a cradle and at Zabuza, who dodged him, freeing the shinobi from the silver-haired blade. How? Can you see the future? Yes. You're going to die. Suddenly, out of nowhere, two embons pierced through Zabuza's neck. Naruto looked where they were coming from and saw a boy his age with an oinin mask. You're right. He's dead, the boy said. Kakashi looked at the newcomer and took Zabuza's pulse. He really is dead, thank you very much. I've been looking for the opportunity to kill Zabuza for a long time. That mask. You are a ninja hunter of the hidden mist, Kakashi observed. Impressive. Are you right? Ninja hunter? Sakura asked. Yes. My duty is to hunt down and eliminate the Nukenin. He's definitely not a normal kid, Kakashi observed. The hunter ninja descended with his shunsin towards the body of the fallen swordsman. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Something, no doubt, did not fit, but I could not identify it. He shrugged and turned around as the boy walked away. The shinobi and their group were on their way to Tezuna's house. When the group's hounen collapsed, Naruto quickly turned around with his eyes wide open. Kakashi-sensei. The silver-haired blade shinobi's eyes closed, and Naruto checked his sensei's vital signs. Seeing that he was alive, the blonde sighed with relief. Then, the more medical side of the Hinshiriki came into action. By going over the possible complications of the severe chakra exhaustion state of the hounen, none of them were pleasant. Kami, please, not again, Naruto pleaded. Please. Fuku-chan, wow. That was long. Kakashi's eyes slowly opened, and they saw the light brown of a wooden ceiling. The Jounin looked to his right, and saw Naruto sitting next to him. The blonde turned around as he felt the chakra of his sense and blinked. You are awake, he asserted. How long was I there? Unconscious. About 2 days. Where are Sasuke and Sakura? They're sleeping in the other room. At this, Kakashi watched his student more attentively. Now that he had bothered to observe him, he noticed that Naruto had dark circles and the tense muscles of someone worried and cautious. Have you slept? The blonde snorted. I never sleep more than 3 hours a day. It doesn't really matter. I'm sorry for worrying you, Kakashi said. Naruto smiled wryly. I'm a medical ninja. My job is to worry. A medical ninja. I thought you only had basic training. No. I have been licensed and qualified since the age of 9. Makuten, and now this. How many secrets do you have? Naruto laughed bitterly. More than you can imagine, sensei. More than you could ever imagine. The blonde stood up. Get some sleep. I'll bring Sakura and Sasuke tomorrow morning. With that, the Hinchiriki closed the door. When Kakashi opened his eyes again, he saw his 3 students sitting around him in random places. As he sat up, he couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. When his eyes fell on Naruto, he saw the blonde, normally calm, smiling with sarcasm. As if he knew something that the Jounin did not know. The copying ninja turned to his student in green. Naruto? Let him go, he grunted. Spill what? Naruto asked, the perfect image of innocence. A large red vein began to throb on the visible part of Kakashi's face. Naruto muttered threateningly. The blonde sighed. Makuten, or the ninja hunter. Mokuto first. The medical ninja sighed again before answering. I discovered it at the age of 5. I made a seed turn into a plant in a matter of seconds. Then I started experimenting with it, and when I reached the limit of my possibilities, I stole the Makuten scrolls from the Shodaime. Along with the Shrinken. As it appeared randomly in the first one, it's just a random genetic mutation. Kakashi ran a hand through his silver hair. It's okay. What did you say about the Inununo? Naruto bit his lower lip. Carcass disposal teams are supposed to remove their prey on the spot. Not to mention that was Jotun's user. After the bloodline hunts in Kiri, I highly doubt that there was a hidden ice user in the Hunter Corps. In addition, the weapons he used, Senbin, are more likely to provoke a state of imminent death than to kill him. It's true. Kakashi said thoughtfully. I'm not a very good doctor, so how much time do you think we have left until the next showdown? About 2 weeks, probably. Wait, stop, I'm confused, Sakura said. Zabuza is still alive, isn't he? And what about his accomplice? The ice user has Chunin-level chakra, but he is likely to be a low-level Jounin, perhaps higher, the copy ninja said. I'll train the 3 of you so you can defeat the nin while I focus on Zabuza. Follow me. Kakashi got up, grabbed a crutch, and walked out, followed by his students. Very well. Today I'm going to teach you how to climb trees, El Jounin said. The Genin stared. But sensei, we already know how to do it. Sakura complained. Only with the feet. Naruto asked, climbing vertically up a tree to prove it. Returning to the ground, he adopted what Sasuke and Sakura would later call reading mode. By concentrating the right amount of chakra on the soles of the feet, you can stay firmly on the tree. This will improve your chakra control, which is one of the most important aspects for a ninja. Sasuke frowned. Naruto, how come you already know how to do this? The blonde shrugged her shoulders. I knew I wanted to be a medical ninja since I was little. I started with this from a very young age. The raven's eyes narrowed, but he accepted the explanation. Kakashi smiled with his eyes before throwing Tsunade towards Sakura and Sasuke. Use those to mark the distance you reach. Good luck. There you have it. New chapter finished. On the other hand, I have already decided on the couples. They will be mainly Naruino and Shikasaku, with the secondary couples Kibena and Sasuten. Several days later, the three genin entered Tazuna's house for dinner. Sakura had completed the exercise with ease, but had persevered to increase her small chakra reserves. Sasuke had been much slower in perfecting it, but he didn't tire so easily. At the insistence of his companion, Naruto climbed a tree, talking all the time in complicated terms that even Sakura had a hard time understanding. At that moment, the raven and the redhead were devouring food as if there was no tomorrow, while the blonde ate at a more reserved pace. Naruto's mouth curved into a small smile as he watched them, and he felt a bead of sweat run down his neck. Why do they eat so much that they will vomit? He wondered. Well, if that means Sakura is taking her training seriously, I'm not complaining. And Nari looked at the three genin from under his fisherman's hat. They have no right to be so happy, he thought. Do you think this is all a joke? Insert tape titled The Sad Story of Inari. Once the boy finished ranting, Naruto found himself struggling to stay calm. He looked at Inari with cold eyes, very, very angry. Don't give me any bullshit. I don't want to hear them. Do you really think you're the only one who has a difficult life? If so, you have serious problems. Grow up. The world is not to pity you, the blonde snapped, before getting up and leaving. Everyone stared at him. Naruto sat on the roof, looking at the stars, thinking about the past. Flashback scene. The first day he met her was when he was 5 years old. Naruto was sitting alone, as usual, when a girl with light blue hair and purple eyes approached him. Come on, he said. Let's play. His name was Kirisawa Aya. Aya pointed to the Okage monument. One day they will carve my face there. You'll see. There was a picture frame. A woman appeared in the frame, her hand on Aya's left shoulder. He had brown hair, black eyes, and a kind smile. That was Kirisawa Megumi. A man was behind Naruto. She had blue hair, and the one that fell flat on her head, and laughing green eyes. His name was Kirisawa Minoru. A crack appeared in the picture, until then flawless. It was growing until the image became animate. A fox with 9 tails was laughing in the background. Flashback Kai. Naruto sighed before returning to the house to sleep. The blonde moaned when he woke up and felt the sunlight rippling over his eyelids. Sunlight. He thought. Oh shit. Naruto heard a loud bang and screams downstairs. She quickly packed up all her things before running down the stairs and out, where she saw a strange scene. Strange in the violent sense of the word. And Nari was about to be cut into when the samurai were shot down by 2 kunai. A blonde head appeared behind the corpses. Sorry for the mess. Naruto looked between the 2 fights. Kakashi seemed to be doing relatively well against Zabuza. Sasuke, on the other hand, well, to say the least, the Uchiha heir was not doing so well. Once the decision was made, Naruto performed 6 hand seals before laying his hand on the ground. Several thick wooden columns emerged from the stone bridge, passing through the mirrors and breaking them. The fake ninja hunter gasped under his porcelain mask as he jumped away from the shattered pile of ice. His technique was second to none. I didn't have enough chakra to form another pair of mirrors. I wasn't sharp enough. I'm sorry, Zabuza-sama. He thought. His death was quick and painless, caused by a senbon aimed at his spine. Momoki Zabuza coughed up blood and uttered her last words, "G. To die like that, pathetic." Kakashi sighed as he pulled his fist out of the Nukanin's chest. The 4 Konoha ninjas looked up when they heard applause. They saw a very fat and short man standing in front of several mercenaries. I see that Zabuza couldn't finish the job. What a demon. It's more like a little chilly demon. And then there's his brat. I still have to get even for earlier. Gitu said as he approached Aku's body, raising his fist to hit the dead boy. Naruto appeared in front of the tyrant less than a second later. Do you know? He said in a voice as cold as ice. It's not okay to disrespect the dead. With a quick wave of his hand, the blonde snapped Gitu's hand. He pulled out a crib and cut the dwarf's jugular, ending his reign of terror. The mercenaries stared at the blonde kid for a moment before one of the bolder ones spoke snotty. "You just killed us. As soon as we get rid of you, we'll loot that one. This place." The mercenary gathered everyone else together as they shouted a collective agreement. Before the thugs could carry out their decision, an arrow stuck in the ground before them. "Thugs," Inari said, "if you take one more step, this village will fight you with all its might." Seeing the large number of followers Inari had gathered, the mercenaries retreated. And so, Nami no Kuni was saved. Naruto wandered aimlessly through the streets of Konoha, ignoring the angry stares. He sighed to himself, wishing to get away from the village. The blonde was not paying attention to his way until, turning a corner, he saw a teenage Suna in a black jumpsuit and a hood with projections that mysteriously looked like cat ears, in addition to an excess of purple makeup, and to a blonde Kunoichi with her hair pulled back in 4 pigtails, wearing a chest armor, a battle kimono, and a giant tesson, one hanging on the back. The ninja was holding a small child, probably 8 years old, who had disturbed him in some way, preparing to hit him. Naruto frowned and ran at a brisk pace towards them. "What's the matter?" he asked, arching an eyebrow, though he was pretty sure he knew what had happened. The shinobi scoffed. "This little prick shocked me. Let me punish him, leaf cockroach." The Hinchiriki arched both eyebrows as he looked at the Kunoichi. "I'm not part of this," he said. Naruto sighed and turned his attention to the other ninja. "Look, that one you're holding is the Okage's grandson. We wouldn't want to cause a political incident, would we? Besides, I don't think your red-haired companion likes the fuss you're causing," he said in an ice-cold voice. The blonde was not cruel by nature, but the attack on his village had been unnecessary. The effect was immediate. The shinobi released the boy and turned to see his brother, just as the Konoha ninja had said. "Yogara," he stammered. "You have brought shame on our family and our village, Kankuro," the redhead said. "Q, but Gaara," they started. "I don't care. Shut up or I'll kill you," Gaara said, staring at him. Kankar swallowed hard. "Psychotic," Naruto thought sarcastically. Gaara looked at Naruto with narrowed eyes. "You can tell he's strong. Shukaku is reacting. By taking such a life from him, I can confirm my existence," the red-haired man thought as he smiled mischievously. "How? Is your name Leaf Ninja?" "It is polite of you to tell me your name first," the Makuden bearer pointed out dryly. Gaara shrugged her shoulders. He didn't really care. "Gaara? Subaku no Gaara." The blonde nodded. "Naruto," he said before turning around. Later that same day, Kakashi showed up with a surprise for his genin. He gave them the necessary papers to enter Chunon's exams. Naruto flashed a faint smile of appreciation as the other two parted ways. The next day, the genin of Team 7 gathered in front of the academy. They shook their heads and entered the building. On the second floor, they saw a large crowd of shinobi, probably genin teams, in front of a door. When Naruto noticed something strange, he was about to discuss it with his companions when Sasuke took the initiative. And he took a step forward. "Stop that fucking genjutsu," the Uchiha ordered. Immediately the murmurs began among the crowd. It was a bit sad that most genin had no idea that there had been a genjutsu. The genin blocking the door smiled sarcastically and held a conversation with Sasuke, to which Naruto paid no attention. Until a genin dressed in green lycra blocked Lucius' kick. Looking askance at the genin, he analyzed his movements. It was fast, but he didn't use chakra. That was pure taijutsu. Incredible. Not to mention those huge weights he's carrying. That boy is strong. But it gives off almost no chakra. It must be some kind of genetic confusion. I'll have to look into it. Then, Sasuke stuck his coal-black eyes into pearly whites. He narrowed his eyes. "Yuga," he said haughtily. "What's your name?" The Yuga smiled smugly. "Neji." And by the way, the next time you go shopping, you might want to learn to be more polite, he said before leaving. Naruto laughed covertly. When Team 7 entered the testing room, everyone was surprised by the large number of Jennings participating. After the trio finished watching, they noticed that the other two rookie teams were heading towards them. As soon as they arrived at Team 7, Hino clung to Sasuke and Kiba, and the Uchiha started to verbally growl at each other. Naruto twisted his mouth in amusement. Sometimes it was nice to observe the childish innocence that most of the 9 rookies contained. Then, an older shinobi, with white hair and round glasses, approached. "You know, you should shut up. They are attracting a lot of unwanted attention." Sasuke turned and stared at the intruder. "And why should we listen to you, O Great One?" he scoffed, smiling smugly. The older shinobi shrugged his shoulders. "I'm sorry. I was just trying to help them. And speaking of which, why don't I give my adorable freshman classmates some information?" he asked, as if talking to himself. "By the way, my name is Yakuza Kabuto. And these are my ninja info cards," he said, pulling out a wad of cards. "So is there anyone in particular I want to know something about?" he asked. Sasuke took a step forward. "Yuganei said." Kabuto nodded and went through his letters. "Here they are. Yuganeji, his companions are Metoge, Ryus and Tenten, and Rogel. Like all Yuga, he uses the Hyuken fighting style in coordination with his Kik Genkai, the Yakugan. However, he is considered a genius among them. I'm sorry, but that's all I have." Sasuke nodded thoughtfully. "I have more information about the participating villages. Although you probably don't have to worry about Otagakure, since they are relatively weak." Across the room, he narrowed his eyes. With ninja speed, the Otagakure team crossed the room almost immediately. The girl snorted, calling us weak. "You leaf cockroaches are no better," he scoffed as one of his teammates stepped forward to punch Kabuto. Naruto glared at the blindfolded man as he stopped the punch, covering the amplifier on his arm with both hands. "Be careful what you say, you autoscum. You forget that you are in Konohagakure. Where there is one leaf, there will always be several more." Before the fight could continue, a large column of smoke formed, caused by the arrival of the supervisors. "Take it easy, you brats," he screamed. The seats were allocated, the rules were described. The questions were answered, either by cunning or by trickery. It was time for the 10th question. And no, not exactly, he yelled at Ibiki that he thought he was stupid, raising everyone's morale. Naruto arched his eyebrows in surprise. Of all those present, he thought, slightly shaking his head. "You don't see that confidence often." The blond man was startled when he heard the sound of broken glass. He turned pale at the sight of Mirai and Anko, probably one of the most psychopathic people he had ever had the displeasure of. To know. It had happened where it used to happen in the hospital. He had returned from an assassination mission, with some minor injuries that he had been tasked to heal. The rest, as they say, was history. "Hello, brats. The next exam will be in the Forest of Death." Suddenly, Naruto felt a knot in his stomach. Ah, shit 99. 99. Yukiana, sorry for the slow update. I've been really busy lately. Anyway, they probably don't want to hear my complaint. Isako remembers, review. Reviews equal love, and equal love faster updates. The Forest of Death Makuden, 20 minutes later, Team 7 was in front of the infamous Shinomori. It was a scary place, usually forbidden for everyone. But the inexperienced jounds for a good reason. Even in those cases, most people avoided it. It was Anko's playroom, and she practically lived there. Naruto met the snake mistress at the hospital. He got a clear idea of his skied personality and his brutal training methods. She was the one who taught him to use senbon and poison, his distinctive weapons. The blonde and the Miraisi shared a mutual respect, which fortunately saved him from becoming one of her numerous toys. "All right, you brats, listen up. I'm going to explain the second exam to you," Anko shouted. Mrs. Snake informed them about the situation, adding a lot of unnecessary scare tactics. After all, we are talking about Midire and Anko, not Inada. As Team 7 approached the booth, Naruto took the Heaven's Scroll and slipped it inside his sleeve. 999, 99, 99. Naruto stood just inside the door, in front of his companions. "Come on." A few minutes later, an eerie scream was heard in the forest. That was it. A human scream, right? Sakura asked nervously. "This is getting creepy. I'm going to get some scrolls." "I'll find you if I get something," Naruto said. Sasuke nodded. "All right. But don't take too long." A few minutes later, Naruto reappeared. Sasuke opened his eyes wide and threw a cradle at him and the blonde. "You forgot the whisker marks," the raven said. "Show yourself." The enemy shinobi did so. As the eng dissipated, it revealed the kunoichi of the grass. "You want my earth scroll, right? Since you have the scroll of heaven," declared the ninja Kusa, shoving it down her throat. "Let's start the battle of the scrolls with our lives at stake." Immediately, both experienced their deaths, causing Sakura to become immobile and Sasuke to vomit. "Genjutsu?" the raven asked himself. "No." The murderous intent in his eyes made us see our death. "Who is she?" Looking at his trembling companion, he realized. "We have to run. If not, only death awaits us." Sasuke's eyes widened as the enemy threw Tsunade at him. "I have to move," he thought urgently, grabbing Sakura and pushing them just in time. Sakura panicked. "Sasuke-kun!" He screamed, "Snake!" The Uchiha turned and saw a spotted snake hanging from the tree. Both he and his companion jumped to another branch. He went after Akura. The red-haired girl jumped into the air, throwing shurikens at the snake. But the monster, that's what he was called, better crashed her into a tree, where she slid down to a branch, unconscious. At that moment, the ninja Kusa emerged from the snake's scales. They should not relax for a moment. Prisoners should always do everything possible to escape. To a predator, of course. Sasuke gasped as he saw that the enemy's waist lengthened, allowing her to curl up on the branch like a snake. The crow threw some shurikens at the ninja Kusa, temporarily halting her advance. The Uchiha closed his eyes. "I don't seem to have a choice," he thought. When he suddenly opened his eyes, they were two-volume Sharingan. Ninja Kusa smiled smugly. "I will take my time and test your skill. I always thought it would be me who would kill Itachi. But I was always afraid, how am I going to face him if I can't risk my life here?" Sasuke thought as he threw a Fuma shuriken, attached to a nin wire, towards his opponent. Grabbing the wire between his teeth, he formed 4 different seals and thought Katen Ryuka no Jutsu. Release Fire Dragon Flame technique, launching a stream of flames towards the enemy. To her surprise, the technique did not burn the kunoichi of Kusa's face, but melted it to reveal a man with golden snake eyes. "As I thought, Sasuke-kun, I wish you," the man shouted. Forming an unknown seal, the snake-like Sans neck spread out, bringing him closer to the crow before biting Sasuke's neck. And forming a seal containing 3 Tamo. "My name is Orochimaru. If you want to see me again, you must survive and pass these exams," he said before fading away completely. "Damn it," Sasuke thought before fainting from the pain. Triple O. 0, 0, 0. 0, 0, 0. Half an hour later, Naruto finally found his two missing companions. Damn it. What happened while I was gone? And what is that strange mark on Sasuke's neck? He asked himself as he started setting traps. It was several hours before anything happened. Interesting. Naruto had just forced Sasuke to swallow another fever pill when he heard a struggle in the background. As he turned around, he was surprised to see that a squirrel was the source of the noise. The Hinchiriki opened his eyes wide when he saw the edge of a seal stuck to the animal's back. Explosive label, he thought, throwing a cradle and the animal, which fled. Among the bushes, a group of shinobi was chatting. He is very observant, said the one who was blindfolded. That's right, Dosu, the spiky-haired one said. After a while, a giggle was heard from one end of the clearing. Up all night? A voice asked. It doesn't matter. Wake up Sasuke-kun, he's the one we're here for. Turning around, Naruto directed an icy stare at the trio of sound, with a murderous intent in his eyes. Sasuke is getting some rest. Find another team. Dosu sighed. Zaku rolled his eyes. I'll take the brat. He offered himself. Before he could get out, Kim stopped him. Wait, he said, stirring some grass. There's a catch here. Come on up. His companions followed the suggestion and jumped into the air. Naruto squinted as he cut a rope to his left, dropping a giant log that scattered Otto's ninjas. The blonde immediately jumped out, heading towards Zaku. Grabbing both of his arms with his right hand, he destroyed most of the tendons and muscles of his limb with the Shinrinken. Turning to the other two enemies, the Hinchiriki charged at them and landed a direct punch to Kim's stomach, knocking her unconscious. Dosu squinted his only visible. Zakuken, this guy is obviously very strong. I'll try to get even with you. But now is not the time or the place. You are very strong, Shinobu-san. I'll give you our scroll. But before we leave, would you tell me your name? The blonde nodded briefly. Naruto? The shinobi nodded, dropping the earthen scroll to the ground. Well, said Naruto. We have the two scrolls. I just have to take them to the tower. 0, 0. 0, 0, 0. A day later, Team 7 entered the tower after 3 days in the forest. Fortunately, Sakura and Sasuke were already awake. Naruto took out both scrolls and opened them. Recognizing them as invocation scrolls, he threw them out to see what or to whom they revealed. A cloud of smoke formed before disappearing, revealing Umino Iruka. The Academy's sensei smiled. Congratulations. All three have passed the first exam. The poem on the wall behind me is the motto of the Chunin. Make sure you listen to it when you take the next exam. Best of luck to everyone. When Team 7 entered the next room, they were greeted by Kakashi, who led Sasuke. Saying something about a curse. The next 2 days were spent waiting for the end of the exams. Yamanaka, and not against Aruno Sakura, the two Kunoichi faced off in the arena. After a few seconds, Sakura untied her idiate from its place as a headband and tied it to her forehead. Right now, Aruno said, I have no intention of fighting with you over Sasuke-kun. And he didn't squint. What does that mean? He asked with a hint of anger in his voice. Sakura snorted. For me, you can have Sasuke-kun. During the time I spent with him, I realized that there is nothing special about him, other than that he can be considered adorable. Who would want to date a block of ice? Besides, I'm stronger than you right now. I don't need to worry about myself. The Yamanaka grunted. Who do you think you're talking to? Come down to earth, front. On the observation deck, Naruto sighed. Sakura, be careful. You may have learned a lot, but no one knows how much Hino has learned. He muttered. The copy ninja nodded before returning his focus to the fight. Hino, thought the dangerous one. I've always wanted to be like you. You were my goal. Thanks to that and Naruto, I'm here. That's why, and no, I want this to be an all-out fight. Unless he really is the same or stronger than you, it's useless. The Yamanaka smiled smugly. I get it. Sakura. She thought as the blonde took off her own etalot from her waist and tied it to her forehead. All-out battle. Sakura smiled grimly as she stuck her fingers into the rat's seal, forming to Tsuchibansen. One mistaking them for normal Bunsen, Hino tried to punch him. Snorting for the second time that day, one of the clones concentrated his chakra on his feet, jumping off the ground, and landing a punch in Hino's face. Taking advantage of this distraction, the original melted on the floor. Asuma gasped slightly on the deck. Toton and Wagakure no Jutsu to noticed. Take me seriously or I'll hurt you, and no. Aruno shouted, I'm not the same girl as before. The Kuno Arubia smiled smugly. I see. He mumbled, whatever you want, here I come. The two girls pounced. Put chakra in the fist, one of the clones thought as they threw a punch. And release it all at once. He thought. Sakura's chakra control was not as good as Naruto's, and her taijutsu never allowed her. I would initiate to use the enhanced strength technique to the fullest, but that didn't mean I couldn't use a modified version. And she didn't pull out a crib and stab the clone in the arm before being pushed. The Kuno Ichirubia's eyes widened as the red-haired one turned into a pile of mud. A clone. There's another one too. Is he a clone or the real one? If it is fake, where is the original? The Yamanaka asked herself as she jumped up from the ground, attacking the other Sakura. That one also turned into a wolf? What? She screamed in no surprise. The Yamanaka instantly stiffened as she felt the cold steel of a cradle and pricked her jaw. I'm here and no, said the Aruno. My nature is the earth. As you can see, the building we are in is mainly made of stone and wood. A simple C-rank technique later. Well, and I can melt into the stone itself, coming out at just the right moment to defeat you. Of course, I'm not as good with dirt ninjutsu as a certain blonde classmate of mine. Winner Aruno Sakura Naruto vs. and Nuzaka Kiba, the wearer of the Mokuton. Simply raised a blonde eyebrow at the confrontation before falling to the ground in a swirl of leaves. Kiva came down the stairs with an arrogant air. Looks like we got lucky, ha, Akamaru? Said the Inuzaka. The Ninken barked in disagreement. Kiva arched an eyebrow in question, but had no chance to ask the dog anything, as the supervisor lowered his hand and said to Jaime. Kiva immediately jumped back, shouting Shikyaku no Jutsu 3 before lashing out at Naruto. The blonde barely managed to dodge the blow. Quickly, he thought, jumping back and pulling out 4 senbons covered with a powerful tranquilizer that he was holding between his fingers. The strength of the Nuzaka clan lies in its alliance with its Ninken. If I take out the dog, Kiba will be much easier to defeat, Naruto thought, quickly taking aim and throwing the needles at Akamaru. The tranquilizer took effect quickly. The Ninken was turned off in seconds. Kiba grunted and stared at the medical ninja. Bastard, he muttered, running towards the blonde. Naruto sighed before performing a series of hand seals, shouting Nimpo Kujiri. As a large purple poison cloud emanated from his mouth, the Inuzaka tried to get out of the poison cloud, but it was too big. And the poison acted too quickly. Once his 2 opponents were knocked unconscious, the blonde man put his hands in his pockets, hunched over Karena and jumped up and glared at him. Naruto smiled sarcastically. Another adult who hates me. Wonderful. I didn't kill them, Yui-san, he said before turning around. The rest of the matches were pretty boring, except for the Shino one, which was bloody. Inada's, which was fascinating with a morbid touch, and Lee's, in which he was practically injured. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Looks like I'll be spending the next few days in the hospital, he thought. Sarutobi was chewing the tip of his wooden pipe and fighting the enemy of all the cages. Paperwork. Something so evil shouldn't have been invented. The Sandaime thought, just before he heard a knock at the door. Finally, something to end this torture. Chibi and Ruzan said, crying like an anim. From the outside he simply shouted pass. When the door opened, it revealed a white-haired man with streaks of red tears and a horned italet with the kanji for oil carved on it. Jiraiyakan, said the surprised Okage, it's been a while. Indeed, said the man. Is there anything new with her, sensei? The Sandai took a deep breath at me. I didn't feel like saying this. Jiraiya murmured, I found your son. For a moment, the Sannin forgot to breathe. Then, all his anger, pain and surprise were condensed into a single word that. Halfway through the village, Naruto's senses, powered by the Vihul, caught a loud scream. Someone's in a bad mood, he observed, laughing covertly to himself. You heard me, Sarutobi said. I was told that he died in the attack of the Kyumi. That was a guess. We couldn't find him, and the hospital was in shambles. So said the Sandaime, helplessly shrugging his shoulders. Where is he? Tell me now. He demanded the Sannin range. Jiraiya-kun. Calm down. He ordered the Okage. There are a few things you should know before watching it. The Sennin groaned, but obeyed his former sensei. I've lasted 12 years, which is 10 more minutes. He grumbled under his breath. Irizan sighed before continuing. Unfortunately, your son, Naruto, was chosen as the container of the Kyumi. Jiraiya's eyes widened. He knew about the life to which all Hinshiriki were condemned. No. No way. He said, refusing. Jiraiya stared at the Sandaime. Naruto. Kami, I'm so sorry. The Okage was reluctant to continue, but he knew he had to. For the first 5 years of his life, Naruto was used as a scapegoat by the village. In fact, I had to assign a detachment to Ambu every year on October 10th. A few weeks after her 5th birthday, someone approached her with good intentions. It was a girl named Kirisawa Aya, a year older than him. She was boisterous, loud and talented. His family didn't hold a grudge against Naruto, and they took him in. In fact, they were about to adopt him when that incident happened. 3 days after the Kyugi festival, the Kirisawa family and Naruto were outside the village walls, wandering in the forest. The family was small. Only Aya and her parents, Shizuka and Kuhiro, were Tokubetsu Hounen. Without warning, peace reigned, and suddenly, two appeared. Shinobi rebels of Iwagakure no Sato. The Kirisawa clan ended that night. All 3 were killed in broad daylight. When Aya fell, Naruto broke. He lost control of the Kyubi and killed all the rebellious shinobi. Something in him snapped that day. Maybe it was Kirisawa's death, maybe the men he killed, or maybe a combination of both. But he finally managed to put it behind him and move on. Naruto trained mercilessly until he reached an amazing level of chakra control. Finally, he found someone willing to teach him medical ninjutsu. Naruto had a talent for it, and 2 years later, he was already actively collaborating in the hospital, and a year later, he became a fully qualified medical ninja. She looks a lot like her mother, but she certainly has a calmer temperament. Naruto is also very good at Furuinjutsu. I don't know much about his progress in that regard, but I've seen some glimpses. Jiraiya turned pale. Okami. Naruto. Will you forgive me? For abandoning him. For condemning him to the life he's had. Jiraiya wondered aloud, charging himself of guilt. Jiraiya, everything will be fine. In the meantime, you should find Tsunade and talk to her. Madoge was standing in hospital room number 438, next to the bed on which her student was lying. There were also 3 doctors there. "And well," asked the lycra-clad Jounin, "is there anything you can do?" The first doctor, a woman with purple hair, shook her head as she looked down. "We can't do anything alone. I'm sorry." The third doctor, a man with black hair, spoke. "But don't lose hope. Senpai could do something." The one in the middle, a blue-haired woman, nodded. "It's true. Senpai, my work is another of his miracles." The purple one smiled slightly. "Yes. They call him Tsukurite no Kiseki for a reason." Saki, Saki, Saki. Naruto himself was currently at the reception desk of the hospital. Nico, the woman manning the counter, greeted her superior with a cheerful and scary voice. "Hello, Naruto-senpai." The blonde moaned. "How many times have I told you not to call me that?" "More than I can remember." 673 at least. Naruto sighed before pulling himself together. "I need Rogel's room number." Nico nodded and quickly replied to the blonde 438. "Thank you." Second. Naruto opened the door to room 438 and was met with 5 grim expressions. "Why do they have so many long faces?" he asked. The doctor rolled his eyes and handed a clipboard to Naruto. "That's the forecast. Is there anything you can do?" The Hinchuriki took a look at the clipboard, flipping through the multiple sheets. Sighing, he closed his eyes for a moment before answering. "I think I have a solution. I will need a few days to prepare it and smooth out the wrinkles. I should be able to start the operation in 3 days. I'll be back tomorrow and the day after to check on you, Lee, so don't be surprised if I stop by." Gay started crying with Anam tears, shaking her fist. "Your flames are burning harder, medical ninja." "Fine. I will make 100 laps around the village to celebrate your flames of youth." The Makuden user laughed nervously before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Getting away from the creepy taijutsu master as quickly as possible. When Naruto returned to's room the next day, he was surprised to find Hinchurikisuna in the room, about to crush the Leaf Genin's neck. With an ultra-quick move, the blonde grabbed the redhead's wrist, effectively preventing him from using his sand. "Why is that?" muttered the ninja Suna. "Why did you stop me?" Just when he was thinking why the sand doesn't protect me, in the back of his mind. "I'm not just protecting him," the Makuden user said. "I'm also protecting you from yourself. If you kill Lee, you will be no better than the monster that resides inside your seal. Is that what you really want?" Hinchuriki and Vihulu are 2 different things, remember that. You are no more Shukaku than I am the Kumi. Remember, the moon is never completely alone, it has the stars for company. Gaara's eyes widened. Who is this guy? He wondered. To shake the foundations of my beliefs with a few sentences. Who are you, Naruto? If you need to talk to someone, stop by the hospital. Anyway, I'll probably stay there for the rest of the month, Naruto said. When the blonde finished speaking, he released the hairy man's wrist. And he came out of the hospital in a flurry of leaves. Gaara stared at the place where he had been standing. The next day, after Naruto finished checking on Lee, he felt a chakra formed by sand, wind, blood, and demonic energy. Gaara, the blonde noticed. The Kyuubi Hinchiriki found the red-haired man a few blocks away and headed towards him. "Hey, Gaara!" he screamed. The stoic Tsunade turned to look at the blonde. "I thought a lot about what you said yesterday. I don't know if I can do it, but I'd like to try," he said. The blonde smiled warmly. "That's all. You just have to try." "Thank you." That was all Gaara said before disappearing into a swirl of sand. Second. The next day, Naruto entered room 438 of the hospital, prepared to cure Rogel. Madoge was there, because she wanted to make sure that her favorite student was okay. The doctor nodded his head before approaching Lee's bed. "All right, Lee, I need you to sit up, with your back to me. Let me know right away if anything hurts. It's okay, Naruto-kun," Lee said cheerfully. The blonde smiled slightly and placed both hands on the older genin's back. The chakra was formed in the tenketsu of his fingertips. Naruto carefully introduced chakra threads into Lee's body and began the delicate process of going through his patient's body. Every time a chakra strand collided with a bone fragment, Naruto would dissipate it. Every time she broke an arm or a leg, he healed her. The process was long and tedious, but much safer than the alternative method used by the San in Namakuji. About 4 hours later, the procedure concluded. Naruto was exhausted, but happy that Lee could continue his life as a shinobi. The surgery had gone perfectly, and Lee was as good as new. Gei was ecstatic. The flames of Naruto-kun's youth burned with more force. El Jounin shouted as he wrapped the blonde in a bear hug. Now, something Naruto wasn't used to being touched outside of a fight. So the blonde guy panicked until he managed to get out of the hug. Once the Hinchiriki managed to escape, Gei and Lee rushed out of the hospital, promising to give 500 laps to Konoha. Naruto felt a bead of sweat slip down the back of his neck as he thought, "Those two are completely insane." As she turned around, the blonde saw a woman in her 20s. He was of a shorter build, with short black hair, and was wearing a black robe with white trim. Naruto cocked his head curiously. "Who are you? What do you need?" he asked. The woman straightened up as she was approached. "My name is Shizune. I am Tsunade-sama's personal assistant," she replied. The blonde arched an eyebrow. "Tsunade-sama is back. Then I guess Hiraiya-sama too. They've been together for a while. I guess that's true. So why are you here, Shizune-san?" "Tsunade-sama told me to find the person known as the miracle worker, which I understand is you." The blonde closed his eyes and sighed. "I don't do miracles. I'm just working hard. Besides, there are a lot of people better than me. You're very modest. I've heard a lot about your medical exploits. Whatever you say. Why does Tsunade-sama need me? Just curious, I think." "Okay. Anything else?" "Well, do you know someone named Naruto? Tsunade-sama, who also needs to talk to him." The blonde smiled. "I'm Naruto. So it looks like you can kill two birds with one stone." Soon after, Naruto found himself in the same room as the two loyal Sannin. Who would have thought that I would be here? He asked himself absently. Not to mention that Tsunade-sama is probably a virtual library of medical information. There are so many things I could learn from her. And then there's Hiraiya-sama. Perverted as he is the best stamp master that the Kuninoshi no Vi currently offers. I wonder if he will know how to make medical stamps. Then, the blonde forced himself to return to the real world. Hello, Earth to Naruto. We are talking about the Guntetsu no Sannin. There is no way they will accept an apprentice. Tsunade sighed deeply. Shizune, could you leave us for a few minutes? He asked, although it was more of an order. The brunette nodded, looking at Naruto, before answering there, Tsunade-sama, and leaving. Tsunade bit her lower lip, not knowing what to say. This is the son I've never met, what the hell am I supposed to do? He screamed in his mind. Jiraiya gently pushed her away. Start from the beginning, he suggested. The Sannin Namakuji nodded. Naruto, we have a story to tell you. Please be patient, and eventually you will understand. The Hinchiriki nodded and sat down on a nearby chair. Tsunade sighed again before she started to tell her story. It was about 20 years ago. I was 25 years old at that time. We were also in the middle of the Second Shinobi War, a four-way battle between Iwa, Aim, Suna, and Konoha. During all this I met my first true love, a jounin named Yamamoto Dan. He was kind, sweet, and passionate. His dream was to become an Hokage, to protect Konoha to the fullest. But then, the war took him away. It was horrible. I was depressed for weeks, and I didn't do much other than drink takeout. Jiraiya finally brought me to my senses, and we ended up spending more time together. To my regret, I found out that I was falling in love with the fucking pervert. 8 years later, we had a son. He was born on a horrible day, the day of the Kirumi attack. He died as a result, or so we thought. Naruto cocked his head, confused. I understand your pain, but what does this have to do with me? He asked. Tsunade looked down sadly. Naruto, that child you were. You. The Tsukurite no Kiseki felt the blood leaving his face. No, he thought. It's not possible. No way. If it's true, why was I left alone? Why was he always alone? No, shouted the Hinchiriki. It's not true. That was the breaking point for Tsunade. She broke down in tears. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Kami, I'm so sorry, Naruto. Naruto, please. Jiraiya said. I know we have no excuse not to be there for you. But we couldn't at least try to make it up to you. The doctor shook his head. No. Why weren't you there? Why were you always alone? He screamed, lunging across the room and punching Gama Sennin in the stomach. Jiraiya choked up a bit before chuckling and hugging the boy. I guess I deserved it, didn't I? Naruto tensed up before trying to get out of the Sannin. But the older man held him more tightly. I would have never left if I had known you were alive. In the name of all that is sacred, I am sorry, Jiraiya whispered. The Sannin looked down surprised to feel that his shirt was getting wet. He was stunned to discover that the wearer of the Makuden was crying. I have a family, murmured the Hinchiriki. What am I supposed to do? By then, Tsunade had joined the family hug. Watch and learn, he replied. Watch and learn.